Welcome to the City of Knoxville Board of Zoning Appeals. I'm Ada Sherrill, the chair of the BZA, and I'll be conducting today's meeting. Alongside me are the other members of the BZA. I have the tables here to the side of the room with the city staff members. Today's meeting will be conducted in the order of the agenda. Agendas are available at the table near the entrance. Pursuant to the BZA administrative rules, each matter on the agenda will be considered in the following order: staff comments, proponents, opponents, rebuttals, discussion among board members, motion, second, discussion among board members, and a vote. Members of the public may address the board, and the following rules apply. Each person may speak for 5 minutes and shall not have more than one time to speak, except that the chair may allow 2 minutes to the applicant for rebuttal. When more than one person wants to speak to an issue, each side is limited to 3 speakers with 5 minutes each. The board may ask questions of any speaker and may allow more time or more speakers by a vote. Speakers should limit their remarks to the facts of the case and should avoid repeating comments that have been previously presented to the board. All speakers should come to the podium and speak directly into the microphone. Speakers need to state their name and address for the record. Appeals of decisions by the BZA are made to the Knoxville City Council. A petition for such an appeal shall be filed with the Land Review and Building Inspections Department not more than 15 days from the date of BZA's decision. We now call roll.
Amy Sherrill.
Here.
Brad Salisbury.
Here.
Ted O.
Here.
Burley White. Louise Urrea.
Here.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is to approve some minutes. So for the November 18th, we have Luis, Daniel, and I in attendance. So we have a motion for approving those minutes.
I move to approve minutes of November 5th. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next is the minutes for the January 20th meeting, which was Daniel, Brad, and myself.
To approve. Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Next portion of our meeting is the old business, and the first item up is BZA 260001. While the applicant's making the way up, we have staff comments, please.
Yes. The applicant is.
Oh, wait, stop.
Before we get started, I'm going to recuse myself from this one.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
I'm going to.
Okay.
Alright. The applicant is requesting 2 variances related to a proposed single-family dwelling in an R2 zoning district. First request is to increase the maximum allowed building coverage in an R2 zoning district from 30% to 38.2%. The second request is to increase the maximum impervious surface coverage in an R2 zoning district from 40% to 45.3%. The applicant should explain why the proposed design cannot be modified to comply with the maximum yielding and impervious coverage standards, and how the request aligns with the intent of Article 16.3.E of the floor, which states that a variance should only be granted for the minimum adjustment necessary.
Thank you. State your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon, my name is Daniel Sanders.
Is the mic on? Do we know? Perfect. As long as it's green, we're good.
Daniel Sanders, we currently reside at 714 Beach Place, which is also in the middle of the neighborhood. I lived there since 2010. My wife and I were lucky enough to purchase 911 Illinois in 2003. That's the property we're talking about today. This is where we're going to raise our kids. We've got 2 here in the back, possibly another one that we're talking about. We are requesting 2 related variances from the RN2 zoning district, an increase in the maximum building coverage from 30 to 38%, and an increase in the maximum impervious surface coverage from 40 to 45%. The hardship arises from a siting constraint created by the application of historic massing implementations for this particular lot, which necessitate a more horizontal distribution of square footage and render strict compliance with the building and impervious coverage limits and practical. A special condition that does not apply generally to RNG lots outside of this particular historic context. Our original design for this home was a true 2-story structure. However, after meeting with the neighborhood's historic zoning liaison, Aaron Streeter, we were encouraged to reduce the vertical massing and instead pursue a 1.5-story form that is more consistent with the existing character of Elevator Street. We followed that guidance with faith. The revised design actually is smaller in total livable square footage than our original 2-story proposal. But because the square footage is distributed horizontally rather than vertically, the footprint increases, which in turn causes the project to exceed the numerical building impervious coverage limits, even though the overall scale and intensity of the project is reduced. The proposed layout also allows us to accommodate elderly parents on the property in a manner that's fully consistent with code's allowance for accessory building units. We have 4 elderly parents that live in the county. My parents turned 70 this year, and Sarah's parents are not far behind. We are their only local support and one adoption and care for them in our home. I would also note that in October, this board voted 4-0 to grant variances allowing greater building coverage and impervious surface percentages on another property in a historic R2 district based on similar underlying concerns, as the care of elderly parents, which confirms that this relief requested here is modest and consistent with the board's prior application of these standards. Variance does not involve prohibited use. Garage and we were all permitted by right. Relief requested is the minimum adjustment necessary to allow reasonable use of the property in a form that is compatible with the neighborhood and consistent with the purpose of the intent of the code. Granting the variance will not be injurious to the neighborhood, contrary to public interest. To the contrary, it facilitates the design, reduces massing, respects the historic context, and maintains the residential character of Elevator Street. This approach is also supported by the neighborhood. We have a letter of support that I handed out just before the meeting. And there's actually a stack of them up there. I think we have 11 letters of support from our neighbors. And the one that's directly on top is actually one from our neighborhood association that had a meeting in early December and voted to have the board president draft this letter. That was submitted with our application. The next letter I just want to draw your attention to is actually from Aaron Streeter, who's our historic liaison and an architect who lives 2 doors down from our this house. He's in complete support of this and agrees that the siding constraint presented by the historic context makes it impracticable to the house that we might otherwise be entitled to build, right? So we could build a 2-story house here, but the neighborhood prefers less intense access. So with that, I think we have, I actually did
You have about 30 seconds left.
a little chart here. We've reached out to everybody that's came from here. We've received approval from the green areas, but we've not received any opposition. I know anything that variance sign has been under the yard for 3 months. So somebody who opposes this, they would come to the meeting and discuss. With no objections, only support. This variance is in harmony with the neighborhood and not injurious to the public interest. Just requesting to approve this for our house.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor or opposition to this item? Okay, and then we'll move on to board discussion.
Questions?
Not yet.
That's it.
I will say we, in these historic neighborhoods, often there's a higher density. Certainly seen the need arise, and I appreciate that maybe the form has changed based on some of that feedback. It certainly helps to hear that there's a lot of support in the neighborhood, especially as we look at if there's anything to this that would be contrary to public interest. To me, it's in keeping with a lot of the conditions that are in these historic neighborhoods, and it's got support.
Hickory and also potentially citing the variance. Variance.
In this case, it might be a little wider than some of the others even, but
Yeah, I feel like some of the
Yeah, but these social movements are always tough to use existing laws. Just cameras and signs, those are
some pieces that are a lot more reduced. So just get some
I'll make a motion to approve 081 ML, I'm sorry, BZA 260001 on the basis of their lot as it's submitted.
I will second that motion.
motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 So approved. Thank you. Will you tell Brad? Are you being Brad? Thank you. BZA 260006 is the applicant with us as you make your way up. We
The applicant is requesting one variance related to a proposed detached monument sign in CG1 zone. The request is to decrease the minimum required setback for the detached sign in CG1 zoning district from 10 feet from street-wide right-of-way to 6 inches. The applicant is proposing a detached multi-tenant sign along Hill Drive, where the property currently does not have an existing detached sign. Due to existing site improvements, the proposed sign will be located 6 inches from the front property line, which also serves as the street right-of-way. Hill Drive is a 2-lane road with posted speed limit of 40 miles per hour. The applicant should address whether alternative locations on the property were evaluated to meet the required setbacks.
thank you. Do you have your name and address?
My name is David Walters. My address is 912 Forsyth Street, Knoxville, 37917.
You need to describe the request in urgent, please.
We are requesting the setback, the way the setback required use unique site circumstances which have necessitated that the sign be placed up within 6 inches of it, or about 6 inches from the property line. The parking area that's existing prior to the development was used for some storage or some parking at one particular point in time. ABC's practically used the parking area is, with the wall in front of it, is about 6 feet below where that curved landscape area that we're proposing the sign to be placed. Otherwise, the sign would be placed in the parking area with a retaining wall blocking or obstructing that view. And given the unique, the circumstances where you're coming over a hill, there's trees abutting properties, we don't believe that the wall signage is going to properly identify the entrance to that parking area. So we're requesting that we waive the setback to allow for the sign to be placed 6 inches away from the right-of-way line And just in a quick GIS search, I believe there's at least 3 other signs along the road that have been installed along the property line, or maybe in some cases over the property line.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor or opposition? Okay, very good. We'll open it for discussion.
Civil, sir.
No, Mark.
I was just gonna say, I know at the last meeting, we talked about KDB, whether or not they had objections, they did not have any objections to the applications.
Thank you. I think for me, for those who weren't with us last, there were some requests for additional information, and we asked Postcom to be able to answer some of those questions more specifically. I know one of the questions I have is sort of this idea of whether that sign prevents, is that really a hardship whether they do or don't have that sign? I think that this is one that's often close to the road. To me, that's a very visible building. I understand. Obviously, there's a desire to have the sign and the applicant express something different, but this is one of those buildings driving through town, I feel like it has that visibility. So that signage on the building is quite large. For additional signage. That's where that falls in. If the sign were placed in the parking, take parking space, would it then be measured from the ground where? Is that part of the
Sign.
Yeah.
I know that there's some things about interstate heights.
So it's not necessarily about sign.
No, but if it were moved further away, took a parking space, it would then be shorter from the road perspective. I'm just trying to
It's a great question.
topography.
Could a sign that's even visible from the road be constructed legally? Is the question. Have that. And does engineering have any issues with? No. With the sign being placed this close to the property line right away and sand road frontage and everything else just being open clear space. Typically look for 10 feet or so off the edge of the travel path. I'm sure if that dimension is given. Yes.
While he's working on that, so per Article 2.4, N3 sign height is measured at the finished grade of property below the sign or the roadway surface at the nearest edge of pavement of the street or provides primary access. So measured from the street.
So they could move it into compliance with the setback and it not be visibility.
For the clear zone, I estimate there's about 16 feet to the edge of the pavement in the property line, so roughly 16 and a half feet to the sign, which would be for engineering purposes. Okay.
I will say that we have not calculated the parking requirements. So if it was relocated in the parking space, not sure what the impact.
Have you considered moving it into a parking space?
Yeah, the client expressed a desire to go for the variance. The parking that was limited and did not feel like that presented the option. Secondly, coming down over that hill and having the wall signs obstructed, we feel it creates a bigger risk to the motorists slamming on the brakes to try to get into the parking area because of not being able to see the wall signs because they're running around these trees. Is not in that triangle of visibility that would create a hazard pulling out onto the road or entering into the road. I believe you indicated 60 feet so away from the entrance. That's certainly not going to cause an issue there. Based on our GIS research, we feel like there's been 3 other signs that have been permitted to be up along the property line. One of them actually appears to be passing onto the right of way. I would presume that they would give variances for those. Those signs exist.
Yeah, it's not necessarily true, but
The problem for us is that we can't necessarily base our decisions on variance requests based on these variance approvals, even if they did.
I struggle with that. And does not have, by not granting it, does it result in unnecessary hardship?
The issue that I have too is the amount of variance going from 10 feet to half foot. Is that the least, truly the least amount of variance that we have in this situation?
Certainly the parking lot played a hand in that. We actually reduced the size of the sign to get it back behind the property line from the last meeting. Once we got the survey, we realized that the sign needed to be reduced so that it could be about behind the property line. So we reduced the size of the sign. I believe it was presented around 90, and now it's down to 7.
The way it's positioned, she would just be a smaller sign.
Yeah.
It's between a retaining wall and property line. And I do have concerns about new parking. It's a 3-story building. Not very big parking.
I'm not familiar with this building property. Overall site of topography is an overall challenge. Makes me lean towards being okay with this. I understand the desire to have a perpendicular sign that's at your windshield property going down the street. Can I strictly definitions of hardship? But I have a hard time with signage generally. It's always out with that. And I think overall the placement of the sign, grant any business that would desire to have a perpendicular sign like this to the street as opposed to a turn wayfinding standpoint. This site is challenged overall with parking and topography. It's a steep step down between the street, this building, and the property line. It's long and linear and narrow. I think based on the overall composition, if they wouldn't have this sign, putting it right there seems reasonable to me. Engineering is not understood something.
Sorry. I'm just like, when you talk about total signage, that that is available, and these are 12-foot long.
Yeah. I get it, it's got good building signage on it, but
Yeah.
it's, I'm talking about freestanding signs.
No, I know, but it's, you know, it's not that they don't have adequate signage, they have signage, white water signage. So is not permitting this limited hardship, that's where I'm just.
I think that the purpose of this sign is different in every business owner. This type of company is going to want this type of sign. I don't know that that's.
New design for the lot and building and all that, you could usually design and create something like that. This is existing conditions in your saying.
Existing conditions on the overall situation of the lot, the size of the building, the number of people that building will serve, and the amount of parking that they have. Period.
Yeah, I think if there are a couple of businesses in the building, the signage plan would be a different conversation. Because it's existing, because that's the existing parking, it's really less than 300,000 right now. Losing another space would create ownership. And I think that's a traffic challenge. Makes it entertaining.
Our sign folks aren't here building, which is
So,
it's true.
Is there any further discussion or motion?
Do we hear from staff? I thought something.
make a motion that we approve BZA 26006 to the basis of the topographic hardship and existing conditions.
So that,
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I'm
All those opposed? Aye. So it's 4-1. Thank you. Okay, on to new business, BZA 260009. Is our applicant present? While she makes sure can we have staff comments?
Yes, the applicant is requesting one variance related to a proposed middle housing side-by-side duplex in the R2 zoning district. The request is to decrease the minimum allowed front setback for a middle housing side-by-side duplex in R2 zoning district from the average block base plus or minus 5 feet, calculated as 31 feet, with a minimum of 26 feet to 10 feet. The applicant has provided a survey-based site plan illustrating the maximum buildable area, the setback, and appears to meet all other required setbacks. However, at this time, the applicant has not submitted any building elevations or floor plans, as the project remains in redesign due to unresolved comments from the plans review. The applicant should address how this variance request represents the minimum adjustment necessary when no finalized building design has been determined, rather than basing the request on the maximum buildable area for any individual use.
Thank you. Will you state your name and address for the record?
Mainly Auckland,
Thank you. Will you describe your request and your hardship and maybe go ahead and also address the timing as it relates to the design of the units?
So, this is a very small, normally shaped lot. It's lot by deed, 1945. And the front setback, I think all it is, 26 feet, it's essentially non-conforming. So, we did get the survey site plan, so visualize it on the road, which what could be on there, and then I can enforce this with my architect to develop actual plan, probably regardless of law. The reason I didn't do that yet is because without the setback control, so they can proceed. So, this shouldn't propose any hardship to, or this shouldn't pose any negative impact to the secure wall layer or the material dangerous to the other properties in the area. Behind this wall on one side is a private easement in the Knoxville. And then the lot right next to this is 211, and I've also put on my lots. So
Is there anyone else here to, were you finished? Yes. Sorry. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor or opposition? No. Okay. I'll open that up to board discussion. Yeah, this is what, so I get, are we trying to overbuild a lot? That is, it is an irregular shaped lot. I obviously understand that there's need for housing and that there will be a desire to have more voters. But I always question if the lot just simply too small, and maybe it should be a single family instead of a duplex. I know that middle housing also provides a little more relaxed setback so that it doesn't necessarily exactly relieve the issue. Did you consider doing single family?
I can do single family as well. Yeah. So basically I've talked with my builder, we need basically a 26 by 24 sensible. I would put a duplex there, a physical map or something. We have a little bit of leeway on the north side, but if we get 1% tall shaped, so we could put maybe another bedroom or something, but I'm kind of looking at a very small space, so we're trying to figure out what would be best for us, maybe preferred single family home or either way we get the same size really.
Am I right to say the setbacks, if it was single family, the setbacks would potentially be greater than a duplex of the middle housing?
Yeah, potentially.
I don't remember what the setbacks are for the rear line, but okay, yeah. So
It's 10, like 10 off the back, take 10.
And other than the requested variance of these holders, sometimes.
That buildable area, that's
I think missing middle was all. I think the issue is also the interior side of the line. I think that's that's also larger.
yeah, it's 15 feet.
So
Which you, I mean,
Starts at
yeah, it's pretty good. Bunch of questions about which sides of the triangle.
So it's triangular lot, and in the front, it's the 10 arrows pointing, faces Folsom, and because it's a triangular lot, it has two interior side lots that go to a point, and based on the ordinance, the rear setback is a 10-foot line only within the lot. It's 50 that line, which is just created by
There's not garages on what you had planned. How does that fall in on building coverage and impervious coverage?
But
Are there building and impervious coverage issues?
not
Okay. Questions.
this is also like the line up at the bus stop, so it's no absolute driveway.
Or are you planning on having a driveway or parking? Are you just not gonna have one?
I'll be on the street with you.
I think this is a situation where, because they're going for real housing, they're actually asking for fewer variances than single family use. because middle housing provides a lot of flexibility, willingness, so.
This Folsom here have enough width to have on-street parking? Not standard width, certainly that occurs anyway. That's actually what I was going into is our chapter 17, motor vehicle traffic ordinance, to see if I can get some quotes ready for what that says about when on-street parking is available. I'll say it's an ordinance that hey, so it can take me a moment to find that at all.
Let's see, KJS aerial when it happens.
It's about 17 foot wide in front of this lot specifically, but it's a very width. I think some of the two middle housing reduction to zero and the cap allowance is that parking wouldn't necessarily be required because the public transportation option would be there. But there's no sidewalks on Folsom. Another issue that does remain.
It's certainly a challenging lot. There's a whole lot. In that neighborhood of challenging lots, less for 1625. I don't really have lots of it, but less. And I certainly do appreciate that. We've come to this before, where the middle housing is setting up a situation where you actually are, it's the least request. Even though it's more building, it's very odd. Very odd situation, it's true. And I am looking at the plan, it does not look like it's not extraordinarily large, but I'm sure it certainly will help to see how it fits on the lot, to know the final version. I think some of the middle housing is about offsets in your faces. So this is a narrow space, there's other places to accommodate that and still be an experience. Correct. Questions? Motions?
So you're just saying that potentially have the other same plan that would accommodate this.
I think one of the middle housing requirements is that there's like bump outs and so you don't have to flat surfaces. I would say 5 feet's the narrowest here. There's plenty of other room on other faces to be able to accommodate that from what I can see. Unless it has to be deferred. I don't know that the actual footprint could move any further than what's requested.
Well, the city didn't see that's the objection to parking on the street. So
I am still looking, I did find one section.
Austin doesn't want to go record saying that.
well, I mean, it's a 17-foot wet street with no sidewalks.
There is no parking sign. There's a section of this ordinance that I've just read that states that the engineering department is, just read it from me. Department of Engineering is hereby authorized to erect signs indicating no parking on any street when the roadway does not exceed 20 feet. So we're authorized to erect. Obviously, we have not erected that because from what I can find on the street, it tells the intent is that less than 20 feet, it's a situation. Say for development services, new road, standard,
we look at 26 feet wide, but it's accommodating on street parking. So this section of ordinance is even more loose.
Further questions? Motions?
I should make a motion that we approve variance BZA 26009 based on your irregularly shaped lot.
I will second that motion.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Okay, that's my turn. Okay, next item is BZA 260010. Is our applicant with us online? Excellent. While you're making your way to the microphone, can we have some comments?
The applicant is requesting one variance related to a proposed hotel in the CH2 zoning district. The request is to decrease the minimum required ground floor transparency of the front facade that abuts a public right-of-way measured between 2 and 10 feet in height along the way from 30% to 14.9%. The applicant states that the transparency requirement cannot be met due to concerns regarding guest privacy and security associated with the proposed use. The applicant should further explain how the request, as well as the stated hardships, satisfy the standards for demonstrating hardship under Article 16. Particularly, given that privacy and security-based concerns must be clearly connected to conditions unique to the property rather than general preferences or operational considerations.
Thank you. The applicant, unmute and state your name and address for the record, please.
Our address is 7923 Biblical Drive.
Would you mind stating your name again? Sorry, it didn't come through.
Lestadian, Beverly.
Thank you so much, sir.
No.
And then will you describe your request and hardship?
Yes, so as the gentleman mentioned, we are requesting a variance on the 30% ground floor transparency for CH2 zone. We're requesting that it is reduced to 15%. The reason for this is that we've been working with this brand of hotels in a lot of different cities, and the client developer has built this in multiple cities, and the brand has certain expectations, at least the customers, on the security and privacy for these hotels, and our customers have those expectations as well. So in order to increase that to any size getting up to the requested size, we have to increase the size of the guest room windows on the ground floor, which has an impact on that security and privacy perception for all of our clients, of the guests that frequent these hotels. So that's one reason there. Also, in order to increase this, increasing this on that ground level is also just difficult, again, because of increasing those window sizes will also increase some of the operational costs for the facility as well, in terms of just keeping those rooms tempered correctly with the increased heat gain that occur from those window sizes. Really, in order to make this any size, make those windows any size that gets close to 30%, we would really have to make the entire wall of each of those rooms on that ground floor windows that happen. So that's what we're requesting. That's why we're requesting this reduction from 30% to 15%. And we've also noticed that we did notice that there is another Wood Spring Suites in the Cedar Bluff area, which is in an OP zone, which also has that 30% transparency requirement, and we did see that. And also, and we noticed that the side of those windows also met the standard for this brand of hotels as well. So we're hoping that with all this in mind, we can be granted a variance to reduce the size of these windows from on the ground floor from that 30% transparency to 15% transparency.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone here to speak in favor or opposition otherwise? Very good, we'll open it to board discussion. It's a very interesting location. Got emergence that are how we travel. Permit drive relative to the other properties. Almost is looking out.
Yeah, that's been a back to this, to the interstate emergency. Yeah. Not fun.
Yeah, I heard security and
Cost.
yeah, operations.
If I may, this is Nash Desai. Is it something we can, may I comment on that, on the hardship?
Yes.
Yes, my name is Nash Desai. My address is 1007 Daniel Lane. I'm one of the owners that is proposing this building, the developer for this property as well. And just like as David was mentioning, the hardship is inherent in the structure of the way this lays out. This is, the hotel does not have a lot of public space where we can have big windows that are open and actually transparent during that time. The majority of the building that faces the street is guest rooms, and I think someone has it on the screen. You can see that they're basically lined up rooms right next to each other. In order for us to increase the transparency, the only way we can do this is make those windows bigger. Which again, they're guest room windows. They're not our lobby windows, or they're not a storefront in a sense where there is a. There would be open, and then there would be transparency light going through them. Again, cost is not that big of the hardship at this point, but the way the structure is definitely a bigger issue. And again, from looking at, and we're also pointing to that other property that's there, and we've done this same hotel in multiple locations. I understand the motive behind the logic behind the requirement that when we have a big industrial sized building, that it's not a warehouse, it's some sort of a storefront where place of business, a gym, a restaurant, or things like that. But in terms of it being a hotel, it becomes inherently difficult for us to keep big windows and still keep them private. Now there might be some room for us to go higher than 15%, maybe get up to 16, 17% if we make the windows a little bit more wider. But the other issue in here is also the way this is counted is the window is counted from 2 feet to the 10 feet mark. In this case, our first floor is barely 8 feet. So where our first floor itself is not even 10 feet to make this work. Those are the different kind of hardships. We are willing to also add more windows to the stairs, which is on each end of the building. That will increase our transparency. Unfortunately, it's a smaller part when we just count the first floor of it. The upper floors obviously are not counted in this particular hardship, but we can add more windows to the upper floors and make that more appealing if that is something that can be looked at.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Richard, any other questions, comments, thoughts? And when I look at the 15%, we're talking about they need to double
Yes.
the amount of transparency on that floor, and I think natural light's a good thing. So
No, just know that it could be increased, means that it could be increased. This is not the minimum variance requirement.
And I'm sympathetic to the challenge, but there's not a hardship in terms of exact topography, narrowness, or siding. And like the chair, I would appreciate apartments with a fully windowless or window full face. So I'm not sure that what the applicant has said justifies the variance.
any other questions or comments or type of motion?
I'm going to make a motion to deny BZA 26.10 based on lack of hardship.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The variance was not granted. If you'd like information about an appeal, you can contact the staff.
Can we ask just one quick follow-up question?
Quick.
If not 15%, I understand, like I said, we can make the windows a little bit bigger. To make 30% structurally, it will be impossible. This project would not work if we go to 30%. Is there a room that we can come back with either 22% or whatever maximum we can come to a conclusion where the windows will fit structurally and not create a big hardship on this?
You're more than welcome to come back with a different application, with a different request and a clear hardship to present. You can work with the staff if you have any other questions about that.
Yeah, the challenge you're up against is the hardship. We don't see.
Yeah, so, okay. Next item is BZA 260011, and our applicant is present, so while she makes her way forward, we have staff comments.
The applicant is requesting 4 variances related to a proposed garage and ADU in R2 zoning district. First request is to increase the maximum allowed building coverage in an R2 zoning district from 30% to 33%. Second request is to increase the maximum allowed impervious surface coverage in an R2 zoning district from 40% to 48.5%. The third request is to decrease the minimum required rear setback for a detached garage doors oriented towards an alley in an R2 zoning district from 12 feet to 5 feet. Fourth request is to increase the maximum allowed building coverage for a single accessory structure on a lot less than 15,000 square feet in an R2 zoning district from 750 square feet to 780 square feet. Based on KGIS, the lot has a width of 47 feet, which classifies it as a non-conforming lot of record, given that the R2 zoning district requires a minimum lot width of 50 feet. Even if the lot were a conforming 50-foot lot, all of the variances requested would still be required based on the applicant's submitted calculations. Proposed garage footprint appears to substantially exceed the minimum width necessary to accommodate 2 vehicle spaces, as referenced in Article 11.5, Table 11-4, with a proposed width of 32 feet 10 inches. Engineering is available to discuss the safety and functionality of access to the detached garage in relationship to the alley. The applicant should explain how the proposed footprint represents the minimum adjustment necessary, or minimum adjustment needed to address the site constraints and how the request meets the ownership criteria outlined in Article 16.3.
Thank you. State your name and address.
Yes, Sarah Martin, 112 Elmore Street. And yes, so the 4 variances, I'll give you a little program background information about this plan and what they're trying to accomplish. So this is the old Knoxville neighborhood. And a lot of the non-compliance described is, as you all know, because the neighborhood and house are older than the zoning ordinance, and we see these compliance a lot in these neighborhoods. Specifically, this client is looking to park 2 cars and have that ADU dwelling unit above. The reason it's wider than a 2-car garage needs to be is because this client also works on motorcycles and is looking to go half to 3/4 size bay outside of parking on as many levels. And so that's why the request is wider. Specifically, I do want to address the last variance request to go from a max 750 square foot footprint to 780, a slight increase, is because I was negotiating via the architectural team with the client to keep the staircase that they'll need to get up to that apartment interior to the building, because I think it'll look a lot nicer in the neighborhood. So if we don't get the increase in footprint, they would likely build a deck style here on the outside. So that explains the last one. The other ones are more about trying to meet that program and bring the lot into compliance while supporting the request by the clients. This is just my personal assessment, having worked in this neighborhood a lot. Even though we're pushing a couple of the limits on the site, it doesn't feel too far out of character for the existing density in that neighborhood and the development patterns that are there, particularly that rear setback. We built a couple garages nearby, back when about 4 houses to the north, that had a 5-foot setback, which works well at that position of the alley, because, for example, with his house, there's no outbuilding across the way, so the alley is pretty open at that point along the streets.
Is there anyone else here to speak? And open up for more discussion. I guess one question I have is, I hear you about there's no opposing garage, but there could be at some point. What was the constraint that kept you from being able to push that garage into compliance?
Off the alley. That one is more of a user request to maintain green space in the yard, which works. It would help keep the impervious surface down a little bit. We don't have to push it as far back. So the further we get into the yard, the more apron we'll have to have, more concrete. So it is a nice personal preference of theirs, but also helps the imperviation.
I know there's topography challenges on the front of that side of the street, but there's significant steps up to. Is there topography issue in the rear as well?
Less in the rear, because there actually used to be an accessory structure there. You'll see a small label on the side that says a little foundation. You can see a little bit of that. So I suspect it was graded at one point near the alley. Now, the further into the yard we get, the more we will hit that grading, because it drops pretty quickly. So another good reason to keep it tight to the alley if possible, that favorable grading.
So that old foundation's what it's almost like you see the fence jog in the back.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It jogs around it, and I should have done a larger sheet of paper, but it's like a little double line that's kind of the remaining stem wall from the old garage. And if I didn't use all my talking time, I forgot to mention the other non-compliance on this. This owner actually got a survey, so we were able to verify the house position exactly with the property lines. And that original house, as you can see, also is in violation of the side setback. So there's a couple of, in addition to the lot there on this, non-compliances.
Thoughts, questions, comments?
I mean, topography makes sense about the place that they have. Topography.
And I think this one actually does have a lot of open space, which is nice, but I think again, these historic neighborhoods, we often, this doesn't look out of keeping with the surrounding context. It's hard for me to see it's 3% is so close, and that I don't, obviously the building coverage is what the building coverage is. It's just that stair might be the factor for that. Are there any other ways to reduce the impervious?
part of the factor there is this parking spot. So we've shown a little apron for that 5 feet off the alley where we'll have like paving leading into the garage on the alley facing side. And then parallel on the side of the garage, there's also pavement that we counted there for another parking spot, which, I mean, to argue in favor of that, we need the 2 parking spots in the garage and the third one to provide enough parking for the ADU that will go above the garage. So again, it was one of those, like, we probably could do without it, but then we'd have to have various levels of parking. So, but they decided to go with this because it does suit their purposes better to have the additional parking.
You know, I'm struggling with a lot of these creative, just trying to move forward.
I know,
A lot.
but it is, you know, it is trading a variance for another variance, and like it becomes a circular project. Yeah, it's weird.
I'm used to saying yes to this based on narrowness of plot. But this is really pushing the gray area with minimums in my mind.
Checks a few boxes.
And I usually argue against minimums, I usually say yes. But there's, it's a bigger ADU.
It's a big ADU, it's more than a 2-car garage. It's a 2-car garage and a motorcycle shop and an extra parking spot. Yeah, I'm strong. This is the minimum variance required.
We've said, in the neighborhoods, we've said yes to a lot of these, but I had to go back and look. I feel like this was mostly said yes to.
Well, and especially because it's, we've had a conversation about the hardship, I was thinking of whether in garage or trying to accommodate parking. It's a challenge, but it's so close after all. It's really under them, probably being able to achieve it. Personally, so close.
It is on the border. Our hope in the application was that it's still harmonious enough with the urban fabric that we could get clients check their wish list granted and still not be too far outside of what's normal in that neighborhood. And I think we're right at that edge. I think they would be open to compromising, obviously they'll have to if variances are granted. And we would have a list of strategies to like revise that and come back. But this is their preferred to get all the needs met.
I'm looking at, it's hard to say without it being revised, but the stairway exterior, you could probably put off the need for number 1 and number 4.
I think lot coverage, if we kept compliant with lot coverage, the garage would actually be limited to 571 square feet. It would be a good 225 square feet less. So that was what really worried me at first. That I was like, that's barely big enough for a 2-car garage, And so lot coverage to me felt like the base one that we need to get to make it a viable 2-car garage size. The other ones were more about the quality of the design as it executes the stair being able to be inside. Those elements. The impervious surface, where is that one? 3% over? Yeah. That one could be more easily remedied, keeping that proximity to the alley and potentially I don't know if there's a way as we bring the design along to get all 3 parking spots in the garage or to apply for a variance of less parking and not have that side spot that adds impervious surface. An option. But the lot coverage one is the one that I think it becomes very difficult to do in a 2-car garage. It's not possible to do that by single cap.
This is transparent. This was pushing the line for me, but when this is ADU, it becomes a separate house. We started to really push those boundaries. I'm not certain what the feedback is provided, and then I think it's too good for the backyard.
It's clear.
And we've got a lot of demands out of that. It is a narrow lot. I can get behind it. Some variants. I'm not sure what this one is, just.
So would you like to make a motion? It could be a motion to deny, and they can come back with a different
They can
application,
absolutely
or
come back
you
with an
can
application.
make a motion to postpone for the same purpose.
I think my question is, do we have any collective direction, maybe not for the motion to postpone? What is it for us? I think they're all kind of related.
I think they're all kind of related to that. I would be comfortable suggesting do this, do this.
At the end of the day, what I'm hearing is there's a lot of concern about whether or not this is regulated. And then what that means.
And that's what's tricky of this one, because no one needs any garage. A house is a planned desire, but that's true for every house, in the whole neighborhood. We all get, there are variances granted all the time for two-car garages, they need them. The hardship is easier to point to because it is on survey, but yeah, the minimum need, I don't know.
No, and I think you're onto something, with the conversation, that the further back it goes, the more impervious you get, and then if some of those, by reducing one, increasing the request of the other, but again, it is 2.5 car with a fairly large ADU, so then,
You're making the argument about 5 minimums.
Right.
And my issue with this one is that there's a minimum there in the sense of you're asking for 2 cars, correct? They want the extra workspace, then they need the parking space. And those things are stacked on top of themselves. There's not a minimum in order to get a good ADU, right? That is a gray area that go into interpretation in our definition of what a good ADU vary. But their definition is, in my mind, pushing the boundary line of what should be, actually should be. And that's my own definitions.
well, and then it rewinds all the way back to garage, right? It's not it makes it not making it wide, it's just more or anything else, so it's become too, right? So,
The dwelling unit itself is pending design, but would probably be 450 to 500 square feet, because it will be under roof structure. For clarification.
any more questions or comments or motions?
If you postpone, don't they, does the applicant have to make other application to actually change the variance request?
We postpone to have additional information provided, and they can clarify and reduce the request. They can't ask for more. It's hard for us to make a proposal to reduce it without something to look, right, then we're designing for you, and it's not fair. And so it would be better for you to come with a reduced request.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if the variance requests change, like for instance, that impervious is a good example of where there's some give and take, even if those change, we're just gonna re-advertise it anyway, so the concerns on that one will still be taken care of.
And I do think from an impervious coverage standpoint, because it was asked, but anything, maybe you can use some pavers and in the front or along the side to help reduce that impervious coverage. Whether it's for one spot or two, not have covered, that's kind of a design thing for y'all to do, but I think that might help go a long way to reduce.
Maybe.
Still aesthetically decent.
So, yes.
I'll make a motion to postpone to March.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
So,
All right, we have a motion and a second to postpone to March, are you agreeable to that? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. All right, that has been postponed. The last item on the agenda had already requested to be postponed. For other business, we do need to do elected chair and vice chair. So, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion for Amy Cheryl to stay chair.
I'll second.
Can we group them? Sorry, can we group them?
I do them separate.
Okay. All right, so there's a motion and a second for Amy to remain chair.
Does Amy accept that?
Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we need a vice chair.
Who's probably the vice chair? I'll use the vice chair. I'll make a motion for Brad to stay our vice chair.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Do you accept?
I do.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next BZA meeting will be held on March 17th, 4 p.m. in the small assembly room downstairs. Meeting adjourned. It says it on there. Meeting is adjourned. 5 to 10 minutes.